In this video, I will show you how to option a purchase agreement and get paid for it. Now we're going to start here on the option agreement because this is how you're going to bill the person that you're assigning your interest to. Now, let's think about this for 1 second. Who would create an option? Well, a property owner would create an option. Maybe they have a prospective buyer and they want to sell the option to purchase to that prospective buyer. And then someday down the road, that prospective buyer can exercise the option and proceed with the sale. But how common is that? Not very common. Typically, owners create an option in a lease option scenario. We're talking about optioning a purchase agreement, and that's typically done by someone that writes an offer, gets their offer accepted, and then assigns their interest in that offer to an investor or an end user buyer. And typically now, that person would be called a wholesaler, but you can call it whatever you want. It's just someone that writes an offer on properties that has value, and they write an offer without the intention of closing themselves, but instead with the intention of assigning their interest to someone else before the close of escrow. So I'm going to show you how to do that and get paid on it properly. All right, so we have this option agreement, but we need to jump over to the purchase agreement because that's where it all begins, right? You're going to write an offer and you're going to secure this property in escrow, and then you're going to sell your interest. But first, let me bring you down to paragraph 23. There's a whole provision in here that's often ignored by wholesalers, but it's important we point this out because there's this boilerplate verbiage that we're going to have to work around later, and I'll show you how to do it. And I won't read this because that would be boring, but I will tell you that it says you can't assign your interest without the seller's permission. Now, there's an exception. If you write the offer in your name and you need to assign it to your LLC, okay, that's no big deal. But if you want to assign it to just some investor out there, well, you need the seller to sign off on it. Also, if you're compensated to assign your interest to someone else, you need to disclose that, okay? The seller needs to know that you got paid to assign it. All right, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too, but you need to understand that this exists on paragraph 23, and a lot of people ignore this, and that's bad because what good is it to close transactions if you have a bunch of potential lawsuits in your history floating around out there because you ignored the fact that this existed in the RPA? Let's jump over to the option agreement and go through it. All right, you're going to put the date up top and where this is taking place, general area, right? All right, and then I put option order. That's you. That's the buyer. That's the wholesaler. That's whoever is writing an offer. Okay, you're writing an offer as the buyer. You're securing this property in escrow. Now you've created something of value. You've tied up this property in escrow, and your position holds value, and you're going to sell that value in the form of an option. This option agreement monetizes your position. So we're going to put you here as the optionor, and then the person you're selling the option to. Maybe it's an investor, maybe it's an end user. Whoever it is, whoever's buying the option off you, you put their name here. All right, and then we put the information regarding the property. Okay, pretty straightforward. But then we need to connect that purchase agreement with the option agreement. So we check the box, purchase agreement, and we put the date in the top left corner of page 1 of the purchase agreement. Because this is what you're optioning. You're optioning your position. That's what is being monetized here. So it needs to match that purchase agreement over here where you're the buyer. Now, here's the fun part. How much are you getting paid for the option? Well, 1A. I just wrote in 10,000 as some arbitrary sample number. So you put in whatever you're getting paid to connect your optionee with that seller and let them make that deal. So you're going to put that in there. And then, of course, you can put how you want to get paid. I checked the box with Zelle just to expand your thinking on all the different ways you can collect your option payment. All right, so 1B, this is about a lease. It's irrelevant. Lease, irrelevant. Option period, that is relevant. Now, you're under the gun with this purchase agreement, okay? You have a certain amount of time. So you need to make sure that this optionee exercises their option within that time frame. They need to figure it out because you have to bail as a buyer if you can't find someone to assign that contract to. So you put that time there to put some pressure on them, okay? And then this is boilerplate text that basically just it just reiterates what I've been saying about how options work. It also says that if the optionee doesn't proceed, well, they've purchased the option, but you keep that option money if they don't proceed. Remember, they're paying you for the option to purchase. They're not paying you only if it works out. They're paying you for the option to purchase. And then disclosures, and this basically says how much time you have to pass the disclosures that you got from this purchase over to the optionee. But notice that we just left all this standard. This is just all boilerplate text you can just leave here. The only change that I'd recommend you consider is down here in paragraph 7. You can change the number of days or check this box that you've already delivered all the disclosures, meaning that whatever disclosures they gave you on this sale, this investment that you've tied up, you've already given it to the optionee. All right, both parties are going to initial. We move on. Now, so you're done. You're done on this option agreement. We're not done in general. We have other forms we need to do this properly, but you could leave it like this and be done, and you've created an option. But there's this other provision in here. It's a little weird how this is added to the form like this, but it says upon close of escrow. So in theory, if you fill this out, you can effectively change that this option is paid to you through escrow. I personally think that is not as preferable as getting paid for the option. If you sign off on the option, they need to pay you. Now, if they don't, if they need to pay you through escrow for whatever reason, well, of course, you can just put this in here. And then you can deliver this to escrow. And escrow is going to bill this optionee and then pay you. But that's a different story. That should be only if the optionee insists on paying you through escrow. Because in theory, one pays for an option. They pay to have the option. Whether or not they make use of it, that's up to them. All right. So this option agreement is done. This is, of course, the party signed. They have this counteroffer thing in here, which is totally weird. I think it shouldn't be in here. Just ignore it. But basically, the parties are going to acknowledge, and if they're real estate brokers, they're going to put their info here. That's it. A lot of verbiage for a very simple form to fill out, but it's really important. Okay, now, we need to jump back to the purchase agreement, okay? Because remember how we have in paragraph 23, all that standard verbiage that kind of sabotages the whole assignment? We need to go over here to other terms and write in this verbiage. I am going to read this. It's short, so it won't be too boring, but jot this down or replay this part. Seller authorizes buyer to assign their interest in this agreement, notwithstanding any other terms. Should buyer choose to assign their interest, buyer shall deliver to seller an assignment agreement identifying the assignee. This verbiage will supersede paragraph 23 and give you, so I see this side note. People write up these offers. I'm not going to scroll all the way to the top. This form is so long. Every year it just keeps growing. But people write these offers and they write and or assignee. When I see that, if I'm a listing agent, rejection. That is, and then there's other verbiage now because that has gotten such a bad name. No talk of novation, just same thing. It's 3-card Monty with the same idea, different name. You don't need to do that. Just put your name. Just put your name as the buyer. You don't need to write and or this. That's it. And then down here, you're getting carte blanche. Seller authorizes buyer to assign their interest in this agreement, notwithstanding any other terms. Okay, it supersedes paragraph 23. And if you choose to assign your interest, well, you'll let them know by this form, assignment of agreement, addendum, amendment. Good Lord. Assignment of agreement amendment. Because this is, so these three forms need to work in conjunction. This starts it all. This authorizes you to assign your interest. You assign your interest to the optionee through this form. And you're going to put the assignee's name. Very simple. Fill the top part. Very easy. 1B, total assignment. Who are you assigning it to? The person that paid you on the option agreement. The investor. Igor investor. All right. And guess what? You're going to disclose right here in 3A that you received $10,000 from Igor Investor. You know why? Because who cares? To me, it is insane when wholesalers try to hide when they're getting compensated from an assignee. I mean, that is ranges from unethical to illegal and nothing better than that. It is absolutely pointless, silly, deceptive, ethically wrong, and likely illegal in circumstances, at least to a point where in a civil setting that seller could pursue you and you'd look very guilty by concealing that you were paid to assign it. Who cares if the seller knows you're being paid for the assignment? You did the work. You wrote the offer. Did you do it for free? Did you go drive by the property for free? Did you spend hours looking to locate the property for free? This isn't a nonprofit. You're doing this because you created value. And guess what? It doesn't cost the seller anything. The buyer's paying it out of their pocket because there's value in what you did. That's it. Who cares if the seller knows? It's the most pointless and innocuous thing to hide, and if anything, makes you look guilty. So it's insane. Don't do it. Right here and proudly display how much you're being paid for the work and services performed. All right, moving on to the second part. You're done. That's it. And this is done here. All right, and everyone signs. Okay, so I want to recap. This is really simple. Purchase agreement, okay? You tie it up. You write this in here. This is page 303, other terms. You do an option agreement. You create the option for that purchase agreement. You are optioning it to the optionee, and you're going to assign it to the optionee right here. 1B, optionee's name. You're going to write down how much money you made, you're making. And then you're going to give a copy of this to the seller, and you're done. That's it. That is legitimate wholesaling. That is legitimate bird dogging for investors, locating properties and being paid fairly for work that you've done, services you've performed. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching.